All right, so today we are diving into Scottish cuisine and culture,
Okay.
but with a bit of a specific focus.
All right.
We are looking to figure out
Yeah.
what is considered like the most Scottish dish.
Yeah.
And our guide for this is going to be the Love Scotland newsletter.
Sounds good.
So this isn't just about like,
Right.
the food or whatever. It's
Yeah.
about the traditions
Exactly.
and the celebrations that make a culture unique.
Food is such a powerful way to view a nation,
Yeah.
It's intertwined with history and
Yeah.
values and even geography.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of
Yeah.
Love Scotland, they come right out and say that haggis is the winner.
Okay.
Now, I'll admit, when I first heard that word haggis, I pictured something
Yeah.
like out of a medieval feast,
Right.
maybe a bit intimidating.
Well, it does involve sheep's pluck,
Oh,
which is the heart, lungs, and liver,
Yeah.
all minced up with oatmeal and spices.
interesting.
It's definitely not your average pudding.
It's definitely not.
No.
But here's what I found interesting about it.
Yep.
The newsletter describes it as inexpensive, tasty, and nourishing.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Those aren't the words that usually spring to mind when I think of sheep lungs.
And that's where understanding the context is so important.
Yeah.
This use of pluck really speaks to
Mm.
a history of resourcefulness,
Yeah.
making the most of what you have.
Yeah.
It's practical, but it also speaks to a certain tenacity
Right.
that I think resonates with a lot of people's image of Scotland.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Strong people,
Yeah.
we can do.
It's like that saying, waste not, want not. It's
Exactly.
taken to a whole new level.
Yeah, yes,
Honestly, the more I read about haggis,
Yeah.
the more intrigued I become.
I get it.
It's not just a dish.
Yeah,
It's deeply connected to specific traditions,
right.
particularly Hogmanay.
Ah, yes.
Have you heard of that?
Of course, Hogmanay,
Okay.
the Scottish New Year celebration.
Gotcha.
Love Scotland
Yeah.
really emphasized this connection.
Yeah, and for those who haven't heard of it,
Mm-hmm.
think New Year's Eve, but amplified.
Yes.
It's like a multi-day event
Yes.
lasting from December 31st to January 2nd,
Right.
filled with bonfires and processions.
Absolutely.
And of course, haggis taking center stage at the feast.
of course.
It's said to be even bigger than Christmas in Scotland,
Yes.
with all these unique rituals rooted in ancient traditions.
Amazing.
Imagine celebrating the New Year with that kind of cultural depth.
I know, right?
Wow. I'm picturing myself at this Hogmanay celebration, just
Uh-huh.
completely lost but loving every minute of it.
You'd have a blast.
I need to experience that.
You do.
But it makes you think
Yeah.
food isn't just about sustenance.
That's right.
It's about connecting to something bigger,
Absolutely.
something historical and communal.
I love that.
Yeah.
And in Scotland, haggis embodies that connection in a truly unique way.
Okay, so we've got this iconic dish, haggis,
Yeah.
deeply intertwined with Hogmanay, one of Scotland's most important celebrations.
Absolutely.
But the Love Scotland newsletter also gave us glimpses
Okay.
into other fascinating aspects of Scottish culture.
Like what?
Like, did you know they include a shortbread recipe from 1779?
1779.
Yeah.
Wow. Talk about a time-tested recipe.
Yeah.
That's what I call a window into the past.
Right.
A way to connect with people who lived centuries ago
Yeah.
through the food they enjoyed.
It's like you understand a culture through what it eats.
I love that.
And speaking of understanding a culture,
Oh.
and let's talk about Edinburgh.
Ah, Edinburgh.
Yeah.
The newsletter had a bunch of articles about Scotland's capital city.
And it seems like such a fascinating blend of old and new.
It is.
On one hand, you've got these modern landmarks like Johnny Walker Prince's Street,
Yeah.
which just hit a major tourism milestone.
Huge.
And then on the other hand, there's a haunted castle with ghostly photos.
That juxtaposition is what makes Edinburgh so intriguing.
Yeah, speaking of that blend of old and new,
Right.
Edinburgh really embodies that, wouldn't you say?
Oh, for sure.
You've got this cutting-edge Johnny Walker experience.
Right.
But then right alongside a castle with ghost stories.
It's like the city itself is a living timeline,
Mm-hmm.
with each era adding its own unique layer.
Yeah, and speaking of layers,
Okay.
did you catch the article about Edinburgh having the world's first fire brigade?
I did.
Wait, really?
Yes.
I totally missed that.
The world's first fire brigade.
That's incredible.
It is.
Yeah.
And it makes sense when you think about it.
Yeah.
You have this densely packed city,
Right.
many buildings made of wood,
Mm-hmm.
everyone relying on fire for cooking and warmth.
Yeah.
The need for a dedicated fire service becomes pretty clear.
It's like piecing together a puzzle, isn't
It
it?
is.
Each little detail, from the food to the landmarks
Yeah.
to those historical tidbits. helps us build a more complete picture of what Edinburgh and, by extension, Scotland is all about.
What's fascinating is how these seemingly disparate elements,
Yeah.
a modern whiskey experience,
Right.
a haunted castle,
Yeah.
a historic fire brigade,
Yeah.
all come together to create a tapestry of Edinburgh's unique character.
Yeah.
It's really amazing.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it really does feel like we're peeling back layers, uncovering those hidden stories that give a place its character.
For sure.
And speaking of stories,
Yeah.
we can't forget those ghostly photos
Oh, yeah.
from the haunted castle.
Okay, I have to ask. Do you believe in ghosts? Because those photos were pretty creepy.
Let's just say I'm open to the possibility.
Okay.
But you know what I find fascinating
Yeah.
is how these stories persist,
Right.
how they become woven into the fabric of a place's identity.
Right. Whether you believe in the supernatural or not. Those ghost stories add another dimension to the experience. It's like you're walking in the footsteps of history,
Yes.
surrounded by unseen presences.
It's really cool.
It makes you think about all the people who came before, all the lives lived, and stories whispered through the centuries.
And that's what makes exploring a new place so enriching.
Yeah.
It's about immersing yourself in those stories, those layers of history and culture that make it unique.
This deep dive has really opened my eyes to the
Totally.
depth and complexity of Scottish culture.
Yeah.
I came in thinking we'd be focusing on food,
Right.
but it's so much more than that.
It is, food is a gateway,
Yeah.
an entry point
Yeah.
to a world of traditions,
Yeah.
values, even national identity. And as we've seen with haggis,
Yeah,
it can spark conversations,
for sure.
challenge perceptions,
Oh.
and ultimately invite us to connect with a culture
Yeah.
on a deeper level.
We started this episode wondering if a single dish could truly represent an entire nation.
Yeah, a big question.
Yeah, and while it's a complex question,
Right.
I think we've seen that in Scotland's case.
Uh-huh.
Haggis comes pretty close.
I agree. Haggis has become an emblem of Scottish identity,
Yeah.
a symbol of resourcefulness, tradition, and celebration.
It's more than just a meal.
Right.
It's a story.
Yeah.
A story about history, about resilience, about using what you have and making it into something truly special.
Absolutely.
And that makes me wonder,
Yeah.
could other cultures have their own haggis?
It's certainly an interesting question to consider.
Yeah.
What dish would you say embodies your heritage, your traditions, those flavors that feel like home?
Maybe it's a dish tied to a special celebration, like haggis and hogmanay.
It could be.
Or perhaps something simple,
Yeah.
everyday fare that holds deep cultural significance.
Right.
Maybe it's that dish your grandmother used to make,
Yeah.
the one that brings back a flood of memories. Yes.
With every bite.
Whatever it is.
Yeah.
I think it's worth exploring
Yeah.
those connections between food and identity.
Yeah. It really is fascinating to think about.
Yeah.
I'm already running through all the dishes from my own heritage,
Uh-huh.
trying to decide which one tells the most compelling story.
It's a journey worth taking,
Yeah.
not just for the culinary delights,
Right.
but for the deeper understanding it can bring.
Mhm.
By examining those national dishes, we can uncover new insights into our own cultures
Right.
and even ourselves.
So, dear listener, we're turning the question over to you.
Yes.
What about your culture?
What would you say?
Could you pinpoint the dish that captures its essence?
What dish embodies your heritage, your traditions, those flavors of home?
Yeah, maybe it's something your grandmother used to make,
Mm-hmm.
a street food that brings back vivid memories,
Could be.
or a dish tied to a special celebration.
Yeah.
Think about it. What dish would you nominate as the most representative of your culture and why? What stories, memories, and values does it evoke for you?
If this deep dive into Scotland and its iconic haggis has sparked your curiosity, we'll encourage you to share your thoughts.
Let's keep this conversation going.
Head over to social media and tell us about your national dish
Yes.
using the hashtag deep dive dish.
I love it.
We can't wait to hear what you come up with.
Until next time, keep exploring,
Yeah.
keep questioning, and keep diving deep.